Welcome to Dinis Guarda Cities ABC. We are a fast-growing YouTube podcast thought leadership channel focused on profiling the global leading, inspiring people and the CEOs, authors, technologists, and academics, creating a better narrative for the world we live. We highlight the ideas, products, inventions, software, books, software and solutions to the multiple challenge opportunities we face in our cities and nations with the advent of Society 5.0, digital transformation, 4AR, AI, blockchain, fintech, IoT, and more. Our channel is part of the citiesabc.com platform that we created and is distributed in the openbusinesscouncil.org, intelligenthq.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, and at the moment we have been reaching over 10 million people monthly. And this podcast and videos are part of the platform Cities ABC that has been growing in the idea of creating a better narrative for cities and for all of us citizens that live in cities. So today I'm very honored to have someone that I deeply respect, but as well someone that is changing the world, the biggest fast-growing economies in the world, in one of the areas that is the key. And I would say that is the blood circulation of the economy. So Jabeen is currently the investment advisor for Startup Bangladesh, where she works as CEO and managing director. That is an organization part of the ICT Ministry and the government of Bangladesh. And she's been guiding a team of crafting the investment and operations guideline in building the accelerator for the startup ecosystem in Bangladesh. Tina coordinates international roadshows and strategical meetings with partners global, and as well as building a new frame and architecture to position Bangladesh as a more modern country in the area of startups, but as well in the area of innovation and technology. She's a very successful entrepreneur and business lady with 25 years of extensive experience in the VC industry and investment, with a technical expertise in due diligence, return models, valuation, VC governance, legal and tax treaties. And she held positions as Director of Finance and Tax as Horsley Bridge Partner, a premier fund of fund, and the Senior Director at PricewaterhouseCoopers in San Francisco, United States. So welcome, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Dinis. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm very excited because I love Bangladesh and I've been studying the country for some time. And I know that, first of all, someone that like you that has a massive international career coming back to your country, especially from the comfort of San Francisco, is not an easy task, but at the same time shows the passion you have to develop. So I would like to start about, first of all, of course, hearing a bit from your background and how do you, from Bangladesh, you end up in San Francisco and as well this international career, and then we go for the second part on Startup Bangladesh.
So a little bit about myself. I actually grew up in Bangladesh in a very progressive family back in the 70s. So I was only 5 years old when the War of Liberation happened in 1971, and that left a profound impact in me because when we were growing up right after the war, we saw how every family, especially my family, my mother who is a obstetrician, and my grandmother, who is an avid social worker, how families like that helped in building the countries in this war-torn country. So that this thing left a huge impact in a very young mind at that time in me. So that's one. The other thing is, because it was a very progressive family and all the women in the family, they worked and, they're a very professional career woman, even in the 70s. So I knew that, I don't have any other choice but to be very successful and be very bold. And I have to give back to the community. So these two things, from the beginning of my life, kind of molded my thought process, the purpose that I should have in my life. So although when I grew up, I know in my early 20s, I did go to medical school for 3 years in Bangladesh, and then I figured that, this is probably too much responsibility for me, taking somebody's responsibility of somebody's life. So I went to study accounting in UC Berkeley Haas School of Business back in mid 80s. So I went there. I finished my accounting career. Accounting, academic career, and then I started my career in public accounting in the US. So I spent my life, almost half of my career in PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I focused in venture capital PE industry in the late 90s. And at that time, the PE industry was flourishing in San Francisco. So I ended up, getting these really large accounts, some LBO funds, very successful VCs, Granite Global Ventures, which is one of the founding VCs for Alibaba, and then also Golden Gate Ventures, Sequoia Capital. So these are some of the accounts that I worked with. So that kind of, gave me the opportunity to learn about startups and how the venture capital industry work. My specialty was partnership taxation flow through entities. So it was a very natural progression for me to get into the VC and investment management industry. And then, from PricewaterhouseCoopers, I actually moved into private industry, which is, at that time, I joined Horsley Bridge Partner. It's a fund of fund, one of the premier fund of fund globally. And I got a lot more involved in venture capital and how the machineries work. So at one point, I realized that, okay, I need to kind of do more. I was not very satisfied with my overall, what I have accomplished. And I think that this type of situation or thought process comes in everybody's life at one point. For me, it was in my in my midlife. I just turned 50, and I thought, okay, it's about time. I can probably really start my life. So at that point, I left Horsley Bridge Partners. I loved that job, but it was not enough for me to really give me that feeling of contentment. So I actually came back to Bangladesh. I came back in December 2016. I just wanted to kind of test the water, and luck would have it. At that time, this Startup Bangladesh campaign got approved, and the project got approved, and I was pulled into by the ICT Ministry into putting together this plan, the investment guidelines and the operational guidelines for Startup Bangladesh. At that time, it's a grant. It was a grant project. So that's how I started. I thought I would stay here for 3 months, put it together and leave. But here, after 4 years, I am still here. And now we have a full-scale venture capital company, wholly owned by the government of Bangladesh. And I'm very lucky and very, very honored that I got appointed as the kind of the founding managing director and CEO of Startup Bangladesh Limited.
No, that's impressive. And actually, congratulations, first of all, because I know that is not easy. First of all, coming from Bangladesh and building a global reputation career in one of the most tough and more, I would say, more innovative cities in the world, or the more innovative city, that is San Francisco, but as well in one of the leading companies in the planet. So it's quite an achievement. But then coming back to your country and this sense of vision. So I want to go back to this. So from your experience working, of course, in San Francisco, that is, of course, one of the capitals, probably the technology capital of the world, and with Silicon Valley and all these things, and as well coming back to Bangladesh, which is an emerging economy with a lot of challenges, and as well with a very young population. So I would like to, how do you see this really shock? And I think it's particularly interesting for people like me that I'm in London, and people listening to us that are in different parts of the world. That experience, of course, you were born in Bangladesh, you have that experience, but you are as well seeing San Francisco, although San Francisco is very dystopic nowadays. But I would like to hear this experience from this top of the world position to come back to Bangladesh and right now starting something that is amazing, but as well is quite challenging.
I like to share my philosophy on when I'm answering this question. And I think that, when you do something very intently and very keenly, and you are very satisfied with the result, and it can be whatever, it can be, you're cooking pasta. It can be you're cooking biryani or pilaf, or doing knitting. So it doesn't matter if you're doing something very sincerely and the result is awesome, it gives you a certain contentment. And that's what happened to me. So, when I was given this opportunity, a woman from Bangladesh going to a school like, High School of Business, which is awesome, right? At that time in that business school, when I went in the early 90s, there was not even an Asian, not even an Indian, any Indian woman. There were people from, a lot of probably from China or Vietnam, but not anybody from our Indian subcontinent. And it was just me. And I was in business school, I was in medical school, then I'm in business school, very different. But the fact is that me ending up there is, it happened. And then me ending up in PricewaterhouseCoopers and, kind of progressing through my career pretty fast. That was also really, now that I look back, it's actually, I feel like, wow, that is actually pretty good. But I never felt that way when I was in that situation. The reason is, we were taught to do very well in whatever you do. That doesn't mean that you have to be first in everything. It only means you give your best effort and you see what the result is. So, same thing, so for me, when I was in, even in San Francisco, Horsley Bridge Partners is one of the, it's not just reputationally, it is one of the best professionally run company, period, in the venture capital industry. Very, very highly respected, highly revered in the VC industry. So, working in a place like that was just awesome for me. And I was recruited there directly, which is unheard of, just directly, not going through all kinds of processes. And I tried to learn and did try to really learn, because that was private industry finance. I started as a director of finance, extremely challenging. I felt like I didn't know anything, but I was a very seasoned senior director in PricewaterhouseCoopers. So, all of this gave me a certain level of contentment. And when I came here in Bangladesh, I felt like, this is a totally virgin area and I will start from the beginning. And actually I did. I actually did. From in every different possible way. My living standard, my living situation, the place I lived, even though I lived in a very good place in Bangladesh, very well, safe, but still compared to the standard of lifestyle in San Francisco, it's nothing. It's still nothing. But you don't want to focus on that. What you want to focus on is how you are impacting lives. I think that, in last 3.5 years, the thousands of entrepreneurs I have directly interacted with, and even more thousands who follow the work that Startup Bangladesh does. Actually, it's hundreds of thousands. That gives you a different contentment, different angle, and it's way bigger than what I did back in last 27 years in Silicon Valley. Way bigger. So that's what kind of keeps me going. That's what drives me to that's what kept me here, basically. So I hope, hopefully I kind of answered the question in a bit of a philosophical way, but, that's how I feel.
No, that's amazing and very inspiring. And I think congratulations double, because I think being a woman in the corporate world like that is still difficult nowadays, but as well achieving what you achieve, like you said, being one of the first from that part of the continent is even more. I think right now we have a candidate for US presidency that is as well. So that's actually, the world is changing, thanks God, but it's great. So I would go right now. So from this experience and a massive experience, corporate and VC, which is key for what you're doing, because let's say Silicon Valley mostly it started out of nowhere as well. It was in the last 50 years. It was created as well in the middle of something that didn't exist, and through grants and through government became what it is nowadays. And a lot of countries trying to partly to emulate that and actually trying to find different ways. But when a government has people leading and trying as well to be conscious that you need to focus on these areas of innovation and startups, things change and things happen. So how do you right now, from all this experience, you want to enable Startup Bangladesh? Because Bangladesh is a very stable country, but is not so well known outside in the world like India and other countries around the region. So how do you work on this? First of all, the work of perception, and then second, how to position this ecosystem and build the ecosystem?
I always, when I go to these meetings and I'm a very outsider in the government ecosystem, right? Because, my colleagues are very senior bureaucrats and they're extremely accomplished bureaucrats, but, they are not from the private industry. So when I go and, kind of talk to them about, how we can promote Bangladesh, or the fact is we are not promoting Bangladesh enough, right? So what we know is that the Bangladesh, which started back in 1971, back from the Liberations War, and all these floods and all these natural calamities which plagues us. But we are not, and the newspapers, they're very good at picking it up and amplifying it. But as a country, as the citizen of the country, as the NRBs of the country, and of course the government machineries, we need to focus on the good stories of Bangladesh. And the good stories it's not just the RMG. RMG everybody knows. I mean, if you think about it, if a Bangladeshi garments industry owner wants to get an appointment with one of the largest fashion brand, I am sure that garments owner will get a easier access than a garments owner from, let's say, I don't know, Russia. Because Bangladesh has that brand. But we fail to create that brand in many of the industries where we are doing equally well. I mean, look at our BPO industry, right? Business process outsourcing. You mentioned that you have been using some contractors from Bangladesh. Granted that we are not at the upper rungs of tech-savvy contractors, tech-savvy freelancers, but we are still doing. We are the second largest after India, so that speaks volume. Second largest in the world, freelancers and BPO. So the reason other countries globally, people don't know it because Bangladesh itself is not promoting its own good stories, okay? So I think that, that is something we need to really work on, and that's why I like this question. So a couple of things happening, and again, we still have to do more, way more, and we have to do it fast. So one of the things is that, things like this Startup Bangladesh initiative. So Startup Bangladesh, the soft launch was actually not in Bangladesh. It was in Silicon Valley back in February 2017. And the reason we did it there is because we wanted the NRB communities, obviously the Silicon Valley, the big giants there, to know that, Bangladesh government is serious. We are hosting a platform like this where we want to foster and develop an ecosystem which is based on innovation. So it is going to fuel the economy based on innovation, not just RMG. So this is just an example. The second one I want to mention is that the ICT industry, the ministry, has this very ambitious program of reaching 5 billion, revenue of 5 billion through freelancing, basically ITS industry. And I know with COVID, obviously, things have, there is a bit of a setback, but the point is that we are setting this ambition. That's important, that you can see, you want to dream this, regardless if that dream comes true 100%, even if it comes 50%, even that is a huge success story for Bangladesh. So we need to, so this is another one. The other third thing is, these high-tech parks. There are 28 high-tech parks plans going on in Bangladesh where we are inviting foreign manufacturers. So, for example, we have 3-4 high-tech parks. These are functionals. And in addition to bringing in manufacturers, we are bringing in startups, locals. But in the manufacturing, we are bringing in manufacturers like Samsung. And one of the Galaxy phones, Samsung Galaxy phones, that has been manufactured in Dhaka. I don't know the model name, but this is huge, and that happened this year. So my point is that promoting Bangladesh, we need to have these type of initiatives where we are bringing these type of manufacturers, global manufacturers, international outfits, but we have to do more. We really have to have a good PR plan, where I think we are lacking. And that is something that, I would like to explore from Startup Bangladesh Limited side. So we can share the success stories of our startups, the successful startups. We have a few. And also, bring in the foreign investors, be it in startup, be it in other industries. But we must attract the foreign investors.
Amazing, and I think it's a great vision, and I think I know that it's not easy because a lot of countries, for instance, I've been working very close with multiple countries, and for instance, a good example is London Tech City. Of course, London is a global powerhouse, but the government of the UK managed in the last 5 years to create a great ecosystem that made London the second tech city in the world. So one of the questions that I would like to ask on this is, for instance, if you look at London and even San Francisco and the New York, which is right now actually actually London is the third and New York is the second according to the last data. But that happened because there was a strategic work between the local governments, then the startup accelerators, and especially the VCs as well. And then, of course, the universities and the education, because it's key. Because New York has all the universities, San Francisco as well, all the universities. And actually, most of the innovation of San Francisco came out of the big universities that are there in California. So I would like to hear on this level, how do you look at building this startup ecosystem in Bangladesh? And of course, you have the challenge, but you have an opportunity as well, bearing in mind that you have a very young population that is very dynamic. And of course, the young people can first of all, they learn fast and they act much faster as well, especially on the digital side, which is the future. So I would like to hear this how do you build the ecosystem, which is key for the success of this?
That's right. I mean, you have to have a pipeline, right? Where, the pipeline actually starts, it's born back in the university, actually, not just universities, back in the schools, in high schools, in middle schools, where we do have some lacking. And, it's like the whole entrepreneurship, startup, this focus started about from government side, probably about 5-6 years ago, not that long ago. And startups, the ecosystem kind of started about 8 years ago, 9 to 8 years ago, private initiatives. We do have some angel investors but not very large base. So going back to the how do you create this pipeline? So right now, what we are doing, and through various government initiatives, government and academy partnerships, for example, this IDEA project, where we are providing grants to idea stage startups. We have a specific program where we go to all the universities, local and regional and private and government. We go to all the universities and we run these a program called I'm trying to translate in English, in search of innovation. And we ran this program twice. And, I think there was we got submission of about 2,500 in a very large numbers. And that's where you start this, pipeline. So we are mentoring and funding these ideas, the winners, and then we take them through the startup journey. And eventually, they would probably get seed financing from the company, Startup Bangladesh Limited. So that is one way. The other way is, at this point, we also have, I mentioned the accelerators. So we have a bunch of accelerators, some really good ones. One is run by Telenor. It's called Grameen Phone Accelerator. So that's one. The other one is run by the Robi Aziara, one of the other telecom giant in Bangladesh. So they also have an accelerator. It's called R Ventures. So what we do is we partner with like R Ventures, and the mother accelerator, they do some funding that can be large in the range of $50,000-$100,000. But we only put a little bit of money, which is about $10,000, but it's grant. And so that's how some of those startups, as they go through their journey and as they're making it, if they will survive, we will end up funding them from the company. So that's another way. And we have all different types of partnerships with developmental agencies. I mentioned UNCDF. The Women Financial Empowerment Program. So, I forgot the exact name of it, but the idea is that UNCDF is running this program where they're funding startups where they have ideas, fintech-based ideas, which is going to help women become financially empowered. So, but it has to be, some sort of a fintech character to it. And it can be, one of the example is iFarmer, where they are funding micro entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs who are working in the livestock industry, and they're funding these women through using some sort of a fintech platform. So Startup Bangladesh is also a partner with UNCDF, which actually became very, very successful, especially their fintech solutions. So that's another thing. And then the other thing is that, we also have, and I'll just mention it very briefly. We also have this project, which is run by ICT division, and that is called, it's high-tech, run by High-Tech Park Authority, where, every high-tech park in regionals, there is about 28, and there is going to be a startup platform where the startups will come, they can get co-working space for free, and then they can also get all kinds of, mentoring and any type of, not financial, but, kind of mentoring support. So there are all these different things that's going on. And that's how, we are kind of keeping the pipeline kind of alive and robust, although, there is a lot more work to be done at the beginning, and which is more like, in the high school and middle school level, where I don't think we have done much yet, or a meaningful impact yet in creating this entrepreneurial mindset in our students, and also in the mindset of our teachers and our parents. Because being an entrepreneur is not very, it's not welcome by families, or even sometimes the teachers. They are like, oh, you're a startup, why are you not, you have a BUET, you have a triple E degree, why are you not working? Why are you wasting your time trying to tinker with whatever? So there is also a mindset change that we need to work on.
Yeah, that is key, I think, for success of any startup initiative. And I think it's key for the world, because with the future of work, it's going to be much more decentralized and as well fragmented, because we don't have jobs for life. So one of the questions that I have is, so Bangladesh is well known as a textile powerhouse, and there was even the fashion revolution actually started because of the issues that happened over there. How do you see the main areas that you want to highlight from Bangladesh? You touched already some of them. I know that fintech is an area, but it's still in the early days. So how would you say, from your vision, and as well for someone that wants to invest in Bangladesh, that wants to hire people, that wants to understand about the country, what would be a bit of the information that you have and some data that you can actually share with us?
So, before I answer that question, if you can allow me to just give a little bit of context about Bangladesh economy. So, I feel like Bangladesh is it's truly an untapped digital gold mine in Asia. A little bit of context. So the economy has been growing pretty steadily. I'm sure you know that. We have, the population is about 166 million. Median age is about 28 years. And the GDP is in the 1900, almost 1900 per capita in 2019, GDP per capita. And the GDP size is about 300 billion. And for the last, decade, it has been growing pretty steadily at 6.5%. And we had the projection of about 8+% for this year. Obviously, with COVID, that needs to be adjusted. We have a total export of 41 billion, and out of that, the garments brings in the about 34 billion of export from RMG sector. And the ICT export for 2019 was about 800 million, so almost around about a billion. We have a huge internet penetration. It's about 161 million of internet penetration. And we have internet users of 102 million and 94 million of mobile internet user. And our Facebook, the social media penetration is almost 81 million. So these are big numbers, important numbers for Bangladesh, because this means that this country, and also the fact that the middle income affluent community, that is growing pretty fast. We are projecting that by 2025 it's going to be about 5 million, and with who will have about $5,000 per capita a year. So which means that big purchasing power. So that means that this is a market where you want to come, you want to situate yourself now, because in the next 4 years this market is really going to go up, especially in the consumer market sector, the FMCGs and whatnot. So I just wanted to give a kind of a context of the economy, the size of the economy. When we talk about Bangladesh, we think about Professor Yunus, who actually put the name of Bangladesh in the global map in a way, in that arena. We also think about Fazle Abed, right, of BRAC, whose platform BRAC basically created bKash, the largest mobile financial platform in the world, and extremely successful. And so that is a huge thing. Professor Yunus brought a microcredit, and Sir Fazle Abed brought bKash. And bKash transformed lives of millions and millions. As you know, that in the garments factories, we have about 80%, 44 million garments workers. Out of that, 80% are women workers. And 70% of them doesn't have any bank account. So a big part of the move is to digitize, do a wage digitization in the garments factories. And a way to do it is through platforms such as bKash. And there are quite a few garments right now who have already installed wage digitization through mobile platforms, MFSs, and they bKash is the platform that they're using. So the young areas, the industries where other than garments that we are looking at, and this is according to a survey where in Bangladesh the emerging markets, not just locally, but also we can export, is like I said, BPO, the ITS sector. And so last year it was about 800 million I mentioned in IT and ITS, which includes the BPO, and we are projecting it to be 5 billion in next couple of years. And what it means is that this is a government goal, right? So whenever a government has a goal in its national plan, all the activities, all the funding, all the other infrastructure development will happen so that this goal becomes reality. And which means that the BPO sector is getting and will also continue to get a lot of support from the government in every way: infrastructure, policy, tax, incentivizing the vendors, the foreign vendors. So in every sector. So BPO is a large area. The other thing, and I don't think that is highlighted very well, not from the Bangladeshi perspective, and I also don't think that the globally people know that. The other area is leather, footwear industry is huge. In Bangladesh, it is already exporting. Apex Footwear is a big name brand, which is doing quite a bit of export. If you want, I can give you specific data. I can probably share if you want to keep it for your records. The other thing is pharmaceuticals. According to a survey that we did I think it's in April, May, during COVID time. But the survey was, just in general, the business confidence index. And in that one, the CEOs and the CFOs who were interviewed, their take is that, it's the footwear, leather industry, it's the pharmaceuticals, it's the BPO. These are the areas where Bangladesh is going to really make very big, large strides. And the way they will do it is obviously BPO. We are going to use our youth, the young talents who are very tech savvy. You said it right. They learn faster. And the amazing thing is, because I come from a lot of years, back in US, I come with a very Western mindset. So things that I see, I can appreciate a lot more when I see that people are working, doing really well with the littlest possible resources. And Bangladesh, the young population, the young entrepreneurs, that's what they're doing. You have no idea how many times a young entrepreneur will, send me a message. They will keep on sending a message until I answer and take a meeting. It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I don't have the time. But my point is they have perseverance and they're very energetic. So I think that, so we are going to use this energy, this talent to drive those industries and those export industries. So I just wanted to, kind of stop there, and I'm sure you have a lot more questions going forward.
No, it's amazing, and I completely subscribe with you. I think my experience with Bangladesh is the people are they have a sense of dignity and as well a sense of persistence and hard working, and that is key. So in terms of starting right now, in terms of Startup Bangladesh organization, and you mentioned a lot of initiatives you're doing and different things. So what are the main challenges that you see for the startups, especially in terms of putting things in practice? I know that the costs are smaller, but as well, there's normally, for instance, if you look at New York or San Francisco, or even in Europe, or in the countries that we have a very strong startup scene, there's a strong, first of all, relationship between universities and VCs and investors and accelerators. And as well, there's the culture that you mentioned. And I think culture is particularly important. So how do you build this? And I know that you start already and you have a very ambitious and very strong, I think, strategy, but as well, a lot of practical things in the way you've been doing your homework and as well your experience in San Francisco. But how do you really build this right now in terms of building this relationship between the society, the startup world, the VCs, and all the different areas? Because I think that's key right now here.
It's very important that we have these different players all stitched together. And so that, we can have this pipeline of startups, entrepreneurs, and take them from point 0 to point 10, and basically, then scale them up and make sure they're commercially sustainable. So the way we, and also this is a very new, I want to say, ecosystem, because it's only probably 8 years old. Majority of it is in the last 5 years. So everything is very new. But I think that, we are making very good strides. And one of the thing is what we have come up with. We did not have a startup policy. We don't have a national startup policy, which is what we need. And every year, every 3 years, we have our national ICT plan, which gets modified based on, whatever the new market needs, be it human resource development, be it infrastructure, whatever it is, education modifications and whatnot. So right now, and with COVID, obviously everything is upside down. We have to also put this COVID factor into our plan. So we are working in our national ICT plan for 2021, and a couple of things that we are going to incorporate there. I want to kind of discuss more about what's in the pipeline rather than what we have done, because I think it's more important that what we are going to do and what's coming in. So with that in mind, so in the national ICT plan, we have a couple of things. So one is the coming up with a national startup policy, which is going to help some of the challenges that our startups are facing right now. So you asked about challenges, and a couple of big challenges. A huge challenge is access to capital, right? This is not Silicon Valley. This is not Silicon Valley. We don't have a Silicon Valley bank here. Who knows what startups are, right? We don't have this very, very robust and very supportive angel network. So access to capital is huge. Bangladesh market is very much, loan lending institutions, right? The capital market is very much loan driven, collaterals and whatnot. The startups, they don't have collaterals. They have this idea, and you need to bet on it. So access to capital is important. So our startup policy is going to help with that. The other one is, skill development. So although that, we have a very talented, tech-savvy young population, we also need to make sure that, they are technically, they are ready for 41R. They're very ready when it comes to AI, when it comes to blockchain. They're very ready and very, very knowledgeable about, robotics, right? So all of these things needs to be in their curriculum, And there needs to be an university, VC, accelerator, government, this seamless partnership where, a student in EEE from this Polytech University is going to learn about AI. And even learn about AI not when they're in a university or a Polytech, but when they're in class 7, standard 8, in mid-school. So that's very important. So in the National Startup Policy, we have this thing focusing on skill development. So that's one. Number 2. And then the third one is, the management capacity, execution capacity. Because, you can have the best of the best idea, but if you cannot execute an idea is an idea. Doesn't matter. So what I have noticed, and also a lot of our startups who are a little bit successful, more stable, these are their pain points. It's not like, I cannot access capital because they're good. They're getting capital from abroad. Foreign investors are investing in them. But the problem is, they cannot find very tech-savvy engineers in the emerging frontier technologies. So that is one issue, and our startup policy hopefully is going to handle that. The other thing is, again, I go back to our high-tech park, and there are all these different frontier technology institutes that the government is putting into the national ICT plan, and you will see this come into fruition in the next 5 years. So, Bangladesh is kind of in the middle of, it's kind of taking off, and a lot of things have happened in the now or in the last 5 years, but there is going to be a huge jump in coming 5 years. And I believe that only if we can execute all of this well, right? And I believe that globally, investors, be it any developmental partners, this is the time to come and invest in Bangladesh, because it's just kind of taking off. So the return is going to come in next 5 years. I truly believe that.
So I want to touch the education part, okay? Because I think, for instance, a lot of countries are right now, and for instance, if you see, as I mentioned before, the success of most of the global startup nations and startup cities is precisely the relationship between the ecosystem of startups, universities, and the culture around that. So I know that you are working a lot on that, and you mentioned some areas, but for instance, in terms of the universities, so are you working with bridges with international universities? Are you trying to create certificates for this? Because, for instance, a lot of things that happen is, for instance, if you see even MIT has been creating a relationship with MIT Portugal, the MIT here in the UK, where I'm based. I'm working for the University of Edinburgh, where there's representatives in Africa and in other areas. Cambridge is creating as well a lot of education online. So how do you look at this? Because at the moment, the startup is as well more and more associated with cutting edge, first of all, research, and as well continuous education. And I know that, for instance, India is working a lot on that. So I would like to understand, how are you working with this relationship with universities in particular, and of course the technical schools?
I think that, just staying locally is not going to help us a lot. We can stitch in all these different key players locally, but to bring in the real technological knowledge, the technical learnings, the curriculums and whatnot, we have to go beyond our geographical boundary. And that means, partnering with MIT, partnering with UC Berkeley or Stanford, or the university where you are also teaching and whatnot. So that is an area definitely that we want to explore and put something concrete and have a plan that a time-based plan where we can see that, okay, these are some of the outcomes that we want to see, and then go from there. So this is where this is pretty open. And definitely we can explore partnerships and collaboration for sure.
Look at most of the countries that have been, and actually starting with Silicon Valley, what made their startup ecosystem flourish was the relationship between incentives from the government in terms of in investment, some local and of course a lot international, and creating as well a lot of kind of golden visas facility for people to go. For instance, you have that very successful in a lot of countries in Europe, which are right now even competing to see, and as well, for instance, in the UK, which right now I think is reverse engineered. I think it will be a disaster, but as well. So what is, let's say, if I'm an international investor and I want to invest in Bangladesh, how do I, let's say I don't know anything and I will contact you, what would be the steps? Because I think that's probably the first question that a lot of investors, VCs and accelerators will be asking, because I'm sure they will be interested in a population as big as Bangladesh and an economy that is growing, like you said, 6% a year. And as well, even with COVID is actually resilient, quite resilient and actually very strong.
Well, the first thing is, we do have, so any investors, not necessarily startups, there is a platform or an agency which is called Bangladesh Investment Developmental Agency. It's called BIDA, BIDA. And they are responsible for the policies where it makes foreign investors coming to Bangladesh the whole experience a lot better and seamless. Although Bangladesh is not trading that well in the ease of doing business, you probably know, but we are steadily kind of making progress to become a little bit better in ease of doing business index. So BIDA is the main agency. So that's one. As far as any IT type of investment goes, so from BIDA, it's really the ICT division. So for ICT division, we have the High Tech Park Authority, who I mentioned that works with all the foreign manufacturers if they want to come and put a manufacturing plant, cell phones or whatnot, technology, IT related stuff. So that's Bangladesh High Tech Park Authority. And then we also have BESA, which is the Bangladesh Export Processing Zone, Export Processing Zone, BESA. So they work with specifically with the garments industries. A lot of the RMG industries, the Nikes and the Adidas that gets manufactured here, those factories, those investors works with BESA. So for startups, it's definitely going to be ICT division. Of course, now, for startups, if a foreign investor comes and wants to contact the government, so it's going to be Startup Bangladesh Limited. So it's going to be our office. And like I said, this is a very, we just started operations. We are still in the process of creating our website. So, so it's kind of a little bit of a, initial stage. But most importantly, the other part is the central bank. So, our foreign currency coming into Bangladesh, there are some different requirements. So there is again, the central bank. So all of this, you are probably thinking like, oh my God, I have to deal with so many agencies. Oh my God, thanks God, no. I will go to Vietnam. But the good thing is, we also have any foreign investors who, it doesn't matter, coming in IT, coming in startup, whatever. We have really good tax incentives. So there is really good repatriation programs. There is 12 years tax holiday. And then also for High Tech Park Authority, if you're coming in, there is also a rent holiday. So there are all these different incentives that they have. But saying that, personally, I think that we still have quite a bit to go to make it, to bring in investors and make it a very seamless and very happy experience. But for startups, we have Startup Bangladesh Limited.
Oh, fantastic. And I know that, of course, every country has a lot of things. And I know that your work is, first of all, I'm very honored that hearing your strategy. So I want one last question, because we passed 1 hour more or less, but I think it's still one to touch because you have as well a philosophy. I know that every country has challenges, so no country is free of that. And I think what is important a lot is the story that you tell and the people. And I know that Bangladesh has that, and is a very welcome culture, which is very important. People forget sometimes that. So one last question, and you touch a bit for AR and these areas of society 5.0 and a lot of the ideas. So it's more for you than actually for the organization, because the organization, I think you answered pretty well, and there's a lot of material that you're going to be using. So how do you see the challenge that we're facing right now in society, especially someone that was in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, working for one of the biggest corporations in the world, and now being in an emergent economy, but as well quite young? Because we're going to have the next 5-10 years are going to be quite disruptive in a lot of levels. So I just want to understand, how do you manage that, and as well how you are looking into all the challenges that coming out of this. And I think we have enough disruption. We need more positive narrative. I would like probably the last question to ask you, because you're dealing with a lot of, I'm sure you have a lot of people coming to you, seeing a lot of fantastic projects, but as well a lot of affiliative situations. So you deal with all of these things. So that more on the ideological part, which is key for the narrative as well.
This is how I look at it, and I'm not sure if it's going to answer a question exactly, but the way I look at for IR and the transformation it's going to bring the lives of everybody, the lives of a fisherman who is in Cox's Bazar, to the lives of a Rohingya refugee in Cox's Bazar, to lives of a Silicon Valley, startup. So it is going to transform, affect lives of everybody. But one thing I think, we have to keep in mind, be it in Bangladesh, be it in a first world country, is that, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that whatever digital transformation revolution comes, at the end of the day, it should make a human being's life better. It should transform somebody's life for betterment. It will bring in a society which is more equitable, right? It should be, there should be an earth. This earth should be sustainable. There should be green policies, right? We have to address digital divide in a country like Bangladesh, where we are not only, increasing digital penetration, but we also need to make sure that digital devices are affordable, internet is accessible, right? For a country like Bangladesh, for a country like US, we have to make sure that education is equitable in Palo Alto versus East Palo Alto versus Bronx, right? And in Oakland. So we always think about, equitable, the idea of equitable society is not just in a country like Bangladesh. It also exists in a small area like in Palo Alto. I mean, I have seen it. I live very close to Oakland, and I have seen it. So, to me, it's like we can. It's not just Bangladesh and the startups and whatnot, but it's overall. And who will bring it? Who is going to drive it? It's the startups. For example, one of our startup, it's called Chaldal. Chaldal is running a warehouse facility in the largest refugee camp in the world, which is the Rohingya refugee camp in Cox's Bazar. And the warehouse facility is using, Chaldal is a grocery store. They use a digital platform to do all kinds of groceries. But the Rohingya refugee camp, why it's, why they're there? Because the people who are living there, the Rohingyas, they can come in, they can make their order, they can come in and just pick it up. So it's digital. So a startup is doing it, right? What is Bikash doing? Bikash is enabling our domestic workers, our rickshaw pullers, send money through this app every day to his family back in the village. So that is, I think, that is what the startups are going to do, and digital transformation, 4IR, that's what is going to happen. So I think that, it is going to be equitable, sustainable, and also a more, kind of a humane world. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world, which country you are. In every cases, we have a lot to do, and the startups will bring that to us. Startups will drive it. Also in Bangladesh, we have in Bangladesh, we also have the, I forgot one thing, health and well-being. Mental well-being is a huge issue. We have seen a big surge of domestic violence, suicidal attempts, and the mental well-being startups are handling that, because we cannot have people, have these physical meetings. The telemed startups handle a lot of these health issues in Bangladesh. So hopefully, I kind of answered your question some way. Again, in a physical way,
Yeah, you answered very well. And I want to thank you for this 1 hour of excellent insights, and as well, very inspiring. I think Bangladesh is in great hands, because I know that it's not easy what you're doing, but as well your experience and knowledge, and as well your profile, because you build a lot of interesting things, more than interesting, very global things. So actually, I'm looking forward. We'll publish this and as well promote it. I want to thank you again, and everyone that will know and want more about Startup Bangladesh will put all the links, and I'm sure you're going to provide some more. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.